Good, whatever time of day it is that you're joining me here on today's episode of Consequences of Communication. Episode 9, Building Relationships, Courtship. My name is Tyler. I'm going to be your host. I'm really happy you're here listening to me or watching me on the YouTube. Today, like I said, we're going through courtship. So we got to figure out what is courtship. We have to define it. Why courtship is important. And the third one is growing closer together. Even though it's kind of all flow together, it's important to really go through this. But before we get into it, this hat that I'm wearing is a hat that I got yesterday when I was working at church, volunteering at my church. We had a volunteer recruitment. That's what it is. Volunteer recruitment going on. And I'm part of the production team. I do a lot of the online sound stuff, which is really fun. And I'm honestly really excited about doing that. That's part of the reason I have a Mac, is so I can actually learn stuff on my own to do better. And it's a lot of fun. I digress on that. But the production team, we're the only team that had matching sweatshirts that just came in and matching hats. And this is the hat. And it's like the classic snapback, as you can see, which is fantastic. The problem that I have with snapbacks, though, is they're all pretty much the same size, and I have to be on like the last one or two little button things. And I like the flat bill look, not really just for aesthetic wise, but for functionality. I like it better because it blocks out a lot of the sun or the light that's up top from getting into my glasses. So like if I was actually wearing sunglasses, there would be very little light coming in on top. I don't like it curved because then it messes with my glasses. As you can see, it kind of pushes it down or pushes the hat up. So I like the flat curve. But if it's too tight, I do have to bend it a little bit because by the temples, you can see the bill fluctuate a little bit. Like there's a little bit of room there for it to fluctuate. But I don't want to give it too much of a curved look because I want to make sure that I can still fit my glasses on comfortably. I can go itch my eye like I'm doing right now without like hitting my hat or messing that up, because that seems tedious. Before we get too deep into our topic of courtship today, the question I have for you, or a couple questions I have for you, is what do you imagine courtship is? How does courtship differ from dating? Keep these thoughts in mind as you listen to today's podcast, and then as we go through these things together. We first need to be on the same page on what I mean by courtship. There are terms thrown around to seem like you are in a monogamous relationship, but you're not. Which is why it is important to be clear during your DTR, which we talked about the other day, defining the relationship on what to expect going forward from that point. And usually it's after that point, that's usually when, at least in my mind, that's when courtship starts. And then courtship is the monogamous relationship which both individuals want to pursue until marriage. So if I was dating a lady and I'm like, hey, I want to date you to marriage, this is kind of what it looks like. What are your thoughts on that? Like I want to date you and get to know you better, and date with the intent of marriage in the future. What are your thoughts on that? And she says the same thing or something similar, and she agrees with that. Fantastic. From this point onward, like these are kind of like the ground rules, like no hanging out with guy friends by yourself, like has to be in group settings, or I have to be there, like that kind of thing. Because not to say that I don't trust you, but it's I want to make sure that you're protected and you're being safe. Because as guys, we see things different from women when we're talking or observing other guys, right? We know when guys are being too flirtatious or too friendly, borderline on flirtatious, or like this dude definitely has hidden motives. You know, there's that kind of stuff that we pick up on. And that we can make sure that you're aware of that, so that you're also being as safe. So you're equipped with the knowledge of being safe. Like, hey, I need to distance myself a little bit from this individual, or I need to set up a boundary that I have to respect, and I have to make sure that they respect. And if not, then that's the end of a friendship. The different way to get into this is I have thoroughly enjoyed the time you've shared with me, and I'm wanting to continue dating you exclusively with the intent to marry. So that kind of encapsulates everything that I just said. This is the duty of the man of the relationship, straight up. Like if you're a guy and it's been 3, 4, 5 dates, 5 dates at the latest, that's when you need to sit down and have the DTR. And if you're not, then you're not ready for a relationship. Or if like you're stringing somebody along, because after that point, you're just stringing somebody along, whether or not you guys are actually like either kissing, making out, going further than that, which I don't believe in. And we shouldn't do that because it clouds every other judgment around it. And then it just turns purely physical, which is horrible. It's the duty of the man to have this conversation, just like with the DTR, but also this is kind of part of it, to define what it is. Courtship is different from person to person, but generally it's actually when I say generally, it's in my mind, it is a handful of key defining factors that make it courtship rather than just dating. So dating, if you're like sleeping around, you're not ready for this kind of relationship that I'm talking about. If you're like, once you get to this point, dating exclusively is such a beautiful thing, because if you have your attention divided, let me put it to you a different way. If you're living in a 2-bedroom apartment, you have 2 dogs, 2 cats, 4 parakeets, a ferret, and I don't know, some exotic animal like a llama or something. You have like all these animals and stuff, and plus you're trying to date or keep track of everything and all that stuff. So this kind of correlates to that, is if you're just taking care of the animals, if you get all of them all at once, or, you know, over a period of time, doesn't really matter, but you have like 9 or 10 animals, I think. Let's see, 2 dogs, 2 cats, 4 parakeets, a partridge in a pear tree, a ferret, and 10 animals. Because the last one was a llama. You have 10 animals, and you're living in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, or 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. You know how much attention you have to give to everybody? Like, just to get some peace? Like, your attention is going to be so divided. I only have 2 dogs, and both of them are kind of needy. Like, when one's like, ooh, pet me, the other one's like, ooh, pet me and play with me. And then when I'm playing with the other one, the first one is like, ooh, pet me. You're giving them attention, pet me. But I can only, when I'm doing that and playing with one and kind of petting the other one, like my attention is divided. I can't focus on either, meaning I can't deepen the bond that I have with the animal that I'm playing with while I'm petting the other one as much. So I try to make it a habit of loving on one dog, like laying down with them, cuddling with them, petting them, like giving them like all the belly rubs, because dogs love belly rubs. My female pit bull loves it. Like she wags her tail the entire time, almost to the point of like she's laying down on her back, letting me rub her belly, and she's like whipping me with her tail. That's kind of what it feels like a really soft whip. But I digress a little bit. So taking that same kind of attention dividing into like this kind of relationship, when you're dating other people, your attention is going to be so divided that you can't deepen the relationship with everybody. So it's better to take all the focus that you want to build in your relationships and turn it into just one, because you're providing so much effort, time, attention, which leads to developing feelings, which is why we have the DTR and why we are wanting to pursue someone to marriage. You have the deepening of feelings, the feelings that come up, the creation, or the deepening of those feelings, the deepening of affection, which eventually turns into love at some point. There's not really a defining thing. It's just more of like you wake up one day and it's just, I realized I was thinking about not having this person in my life, and I'd be miserable. I love this person. You know, like it's just that simple. And you can't truly love somebody if your attention is divided. That's the point. Also, think about it. This goes back to kind of the honesty thing. If you think about it this way, do you want to be women? Do you want to be led by someone you know has no interest in you for any length of time? I hope not. I don't. Like, I wouldn't want to be, like, if I was a woman, I wouldn't want to be led with somebody that doesn't have any interest in me. Just like as a man, I don't want to try to lead somebody that has no interest in me, because it doesn't work. And I've also tried it. I have 2 ex-wives that didn't really want to be led, nor did I know how to correctly lead at that time. There is some fault with me in that. And I've taken the last, almost decade to correct those things for me. So I'm not bringing that into my next relationship, which is good if you do that. And if you don't do that, you should, because I don't know why there's all these like filter things. Is there like a thumbs up thing? There is a thumbs up thing. Oh my gosh. What about like, that's pretty funny. So I don't know if there's going to be distractions on these videos anymore. I'm not sure. There probably will be as I go through things and use my hands to talk. Like there are too many things that I want to accomplish and achieve and don't need a troublesome relationship to weigh me down or cause extra grievances. Like we all have, like what I talked about in like, I believe it was the second episode or episode 2, like your relationship with yourself. You see yourself in the future with some goals attainable, like financial living situation, financial, romantic, spiritual, relationship, like all of those things where you see yourself in the future. And how do you get to that point? I see myself in the future. This is where I see myself on my deathbed. This is where I see myself in 10 years, in 5 years. And how do I get from where I'm at now to where I'm at in 5 years? Okay, cool. This is the path I need to take. And if that's what I needed to take, if I have, I mean, that has enough troubles for every individual, just going from where I'm currently at to where I see myself in the future. That journey by itself is so difficult just by itself. But if you add in a relationship that's toxic, it doesn't work, you're trying to force it to work, you don't like them as much as they like you, or vice versa, where it's like there's not really anything there for anybody or one side or the other, then that's a troublesome relationship that isn't going to work out, and it's not going to help get you to your goal faster. Instead of it being you're seeing yourself in 5 years, that's going to end up being like 10, 15, 20, or never even happening down the road because of that relationship, which is why it's really important to have that list and not compromise and really think about it. And as you start to date people, you expand or detract from the list. You constantly go back to it. You also want to make sure that the person that you're dating is somebody that, or dating and then wanting to go into courtship with, is somebody that's encouraging, that's willing to fight with you, that's fight alongside you, not fight against you, but fight alongside you for your goals and dreams and aspirations as you fight alongside them for their goals, dreams, and aspirations. And then you grow together, which is what it's all about. Like what makes, in my opinion, a power couple. Oh, I digress a little bit. So the importance of courtship, I think I just actually went into it a little bit. So here's kind of the breakdown of things. So you have the initial dating period, which is like the honeymoon phase of dating. Like, oh, it's so exciting. I get to know about this new person, this new individual. They like this. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. They like this. Oh, that's awesome. They like this. Oh, they leave their socks laying on the floor. That's cool. Or like, that's really cool. Like, I really like that. And then when really you don't, if you stop to think about it and take your emotions out of that, you're like, why do they leave their socks on the floor? That's gross. There's a hamper for a reason. Those kind of things. Like, so that's like the dating is like the honeymoon phase. And then after, like the honeymoon phase of dating, meaning you're just so enamored with who they are, what they do, like little habits and stuff that you just admire, probably a little bit too much. Not saying that you get physical or intimate with each other during this part, but courtship is what happens after that initial phase of dating wears off, where you start to realize that, oh, leaving your socks on the floor isn't a good thing. That is a bad thing. That's when courtship really starts taking place, in my opinion. You may have told your family or friends about this mysterious figure that you have in your life, that things may start to get serious. Like, I'll talk to my friends before I talk to my family about it, because I don't want I'm a lot closer with my friends than I am my family, just because my friends are family that I choose. So I'll talk to my friends about it first, and about who I'm dating first. This is kind of the serious part. Also, the time where you arrange for your boyfriend or girlfriend to meet your family in person. Like, I'll have my future girlfriend meet my friends first before meeting my parents. And I think that's just a good step in general, is to have whoever you're dating meet your friends first and see what your friends think. and be like, hey, this is the person I'm dating, and don't hover around them the entire time. At some point, in my opinion, and I think this is like a really good practice. I'm imagining like a dinner or something, like double or triple date, and you go there and you let your friends know beforehand, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Like, this girl I'm dating, I'm gonna leave at some point to go to the bathroom. I'm gonna go for an extended period of time, like 5, maybe 10 minutes. Talk to her without me there, and I want to hear what you observe and what you guys talk about after the date's over, to see if there's any red flags that you may have discovered or any concerns that you have about my date that you need to bring up to me. Why? Because friends have each other's backs. Now, if she leaves to go to the bathroom, yeah, then we can talk about stuff a little bit. Be like, yeah, like this is amazing, or carry on the conversation how Marvel's better than DC in their live action universe and most of the comics, in my opinion. And then introduce them to your family, like plan a trip. I don't live in the same city as my parents. That's gonna have to be a planned trip to go up there. And my parents actually have a rule, which is really interesting and something that I actually really believe in, that says if you're dating but not yet, well, even before you're dating, so until marriage happens, y'all are not sleeping in the same room. I don't like paying for hotels if I can help it, so I bum a room off my parents when I go up there. I say bum. They have a room available for me, and a couple other spare bedrooms. So if I do have a date and wanting to go have my date, my girlfriend meet my parents, that's something that we can do, and it's not an issue. And it also helps avoid the temptation of getting physical before marriage. So after building up the relationship with their family, part of group text, phone calls to their parents or siblings, establishing familiar relationships, which is all really important when you're wanting someone to be your spouse, right? Like, you want to be close to their family, or as close to their family as they are, and you want them to be as close to your family as you are. That's how I view it. Like, we'll get into this in a later podcast in more detail, but when y'all have a fight, I got this from Patrick Bet David, and when I heard it, I was like, this is phenomenal. This should be taught in every marriage counseling, in every marriage class. As a man, you have 5 of her friends that you call when you're going through hard times. Why? Because these 5 people will defend her. And then she has 5 of your friends on speed dial for when you're in an argument that she calls. Why? Because they'll defend you. See how that works? You call somebody that's going to defend the person you're mad at so you can actually work it out. I think that's a huge help for that. So once we get to this point, for guys specifically, once these ties are good enough and the relationship with your girlfriend has grown and matured, you need to take your girlfriend's parents out to a nice dinner, or just her dad. And I say nice dinner, but that's kind of relative, because if your hopefully soon to be father-in-law doesn't like fancy dinners, don't take him out for a fancy dinner. Take him someplace or to do something that he loves and enjoys. If it's fishing and you've never been fishing before, like, hey, I'm interested in fishing. Can we go out like half a day fishing trip or something, or a couple hour fishing trip or something? Because you want to not necessarily butter him up. I don't like that term, but that's the term that comes to my head. Before you leave, you look her dad or straight in his eye and say, I love your daughter. I like your daughter. I love your daughter. And I want her to be my wife. It would mean so much to me if you would give me your blessing to marry your daughter. That's what you need to do. Another way to say that's the one that I came up with just now, but the one I actually wrote down here in my notes is you look them in the eye with a serious face, no joking around. I like to joke around, but you can't joke in this situation. You say the name or what they want you to call them. I have had a lovely time getting to know your wonderful daughter and would like to marry her. It would mean so much to me in our future if you would give me your blessing. Because it's respectful, you're getting his attention, you're setting time aside because it's something that's really important to you and your future with his daughter. Now, there's also a couple ways that this can go. So, gents, before this actually happens, before that conversation actually happens, you'll probably be nervous. I know I was, but you have to prepare yourself ahead of time for any answer that they can give or they may give. A saying, and I believe Winston Churchill is the one that's credited for saying this, at least to my knowledge currently, somebody may have said it earlier, is hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Hope that her dad says, yes, I do give you my blessing, but also be prepared for if he says, no, I won't give you my blessing. Whatever his response is, be respectful. Because the last thing that you want to do is if he says no and you're like, you suck at life, and, start cursing men out or worse, try to beat him up or something. That's bad idea. But whatever his response is, be respectful. And if it's negative, ask his reason why he is withholding his blessing. He should tell you. And then you have a conversation from that point on what his points that he brings up of if he sees something in you that he doesn't like, which is probably more than likely the reason, or if he has a bad feeling about something, or for some reason you're not getting his approval, obviously, and you want to make sure you find out why. And then the caveat to this, this major caveat, is to wait 9 to 12 months after starting to date, and about 4 to 6 months minimum of knowing your potential future in-laws to ask this. That way they know you better than just a boyfriend. They know you as a person and that you have rapport with. So you don't want to be dating this person or dating a woman 3 to 5 dates. Say, hey, I want to move this to a monogamous long-term relationship with you to the point of marriage. That's the intent. And then 2 weeks later, be like, hey, girlfriend's dad, I know this is my first time meeting you, but can I have your daughter's hand in marriage? Like, no, you don't have any rapport with them. They don't know you. You're just some random dude. You want to make sure that you have the best chance possible, which is why you want to wait 9 to 12 months after starting a date. Because after you start to date, 3 to 5 dates, which should take like 2 to 3 weeks, and maybe 4 weeks, depending on the schedules, to before the DTR, and then maybe another month or 2 after that to meet your potential in-laws. And then you start building a relationship with them, which is why I said you need to make sure you build that familial bond. Like, you're part of group text messages, you have their phone numbers, you can give them a call, you're relying on them for some stuff or talking to them, building that relationship with them, that familial relationship with them, so that they also know who you are. Because once you marry somebody, you're part of their family just as much as they are a part of your family. Does that make sense? I know you guys can understand. Like, I know y'all understand what I'm trying to say if I didn't make any sense, which hopefully I did. The reason why you want to ask for their blessing is, one, you want to make sure that your intentions are clear early on before asking their daughter to marry, because then you're just that more respectable and upstanding. Even beyond that, when you go and you don't talk to your daughter about this at all, or not your daughter, you don't talk to you about going to ask for their blessing, talking to your date. Like, you don't talk to your girlfriend about talking to them about, like, hey, I'm going to go ask your dad for your dad's hand in marriage. No, do not do that. You give them a surprise. Like, let that be a surprise, because I think that's going to like an awesome surprise that you can do. So just randomly, without her knowing, you want to make sure that you get the blessing. Then it's a surprise when you propose, as opposed to her expecting it, Like, oh, I know you asked for my dad's blessing, so when are you going to propose? Like, you don't need that. Like, no, just leave it a surprise. And then, I mean, you may want to like lead up to it or something when you actually propose, but we're going to get into that next episode. All right. So growing closer together, the last point of this podcast, growing closer together is an essential part of doing life together, more so when you're courting someone for marriage. Like, have you dated someone and thought you knew who they were, then bam, out of the blue, they like completely act strangely, or they started doing stuff that you're like, oh, this is weird, like the drastic change of character. Courtship helps eliminate those prospects and those aspects. What I said last episode with holding off being sexually active is a great way to show love and respect for someone who you love and have great affection towards. That's still true through this, because you want to wait till after marriage. Like after you guys get married, that's when you get physically intimate with each other. And I'll probably go into that in quite a bit more detail in a future episode. I'm not positive, but I probably will. Getting physical too soon will lead to a major focus on the physical aspect of the relationship and not a depth of the relationship that you're looking for at this stage. The best way that I've heard this explained, a relationship is like a 3-tiered cake, right? So you have like the base layer, which is like your common grounds and like, you know, just building the relationship on a good foundation. You have similar interests, like your financial situations are the same, or you understand it and are willing to take it on. Your core beliefs, your faith beliefs are the same or similar enough. Your political views are similar, and like, so you have that foundation. Then the next tiered cake is finding each other attractive, not just physically, but personality, physical, mental, emotional, like attraction. Like that's the best way I can describe that. Then the next one, like the top tier cake, is the bonuses. Like I don't necessarily want somebody who loves to play video games or games at all, but I love playing board games, card games, video games, like in any kind of game that's not a word game. I don't like word games. And to me, that's something that we can enjoy together. And if that's something that they prefer or they also enjoy doing, that is like the top of the cake. Like that is just a tremendous blessing for them to have, or for me to have, like them to also enjoy that. But then sex is the topping. Like it's the icing on the cake. But if you try to build a cake starting with the frosting as the base, and then you put a cake on top of it, like the actually baked cake on top of it, it's going to crumble. It's not going to be very good, or it's going to be so flimsy that you can't really build anything off of that. And then also making sure that you have that longer relationship is to make sure that you can see many different sides of this person. Not in like a schizophrenic kind of way, but in how do they react in situations when they're angry? How do they act in situations when they're sad? How do they act in tragedies? If they react in tragedies and just dive into sin or something that you don't agree with, that's not good at all. That would be something to cause me to lose some attraction, or if not all attraction, if they did something like that. Because that's not the kind of person that I want to be with. So, you're going to see all these different angles of them. How do they act when they're happy? How do they act when they're like extremely playful? Are they still respectful when they're extremely playful? When they banter, which is one of my favorite words, like when y'all banter, are they keeping it respectful, or are they like hitting you below the belt, which kind of sucks? And not physically below the belt, but y'all understand what I'm saying. So you grow closer with each other, or also, deals with difficult conversations. So you can have those conversations of like when you were a kid, like was there anything in your childhood that gave you issues and problems that came into adulthood, and how did you deal with those? That is a question everybody can answer. There's always questions like that. There's questions like that. Like I didn't realize something until like a year and a half ago about me growing up. But looking back and hearing it from my sister and mom, I was like, oh, that makes kind of a lot of sense now about how this thing affected me. But that's something I had to deal with. Like a couple of topics to talk about in those hard conversations or difficult conversations to have are, I see life moving in a specific direction that would require us to change a bit each. And I want to make sure that I'm still attracted to you, or I'm still attractive to you, and that you remain an increase in your attraction to me. Meaning, like if you as an individual see yourself growing down route A or B, and you talk to your the woman that you're dating or the guy that you're dating or courting, and they say that, you have to honestly say, I could see myself in either of those, but if I had to have a choice between just those two, then it would be this. But we could also do something like this, have input and suggestions, because not everybody can think of everything. We're not God. You have God on our side, yes, but he also put you in my life and to help think of these things to make sure that our life is as best as it possibly can be, so we can serve God and reach people for him. Like, that's my personal outlook on it. But then they come back and you guys agree, okay, so route B is going to be the best way for us to do that, because A is going to give you some qualities that I don't really like. And these are the qualities that I don't like. These are why I don't like those qualities. How are y'all going to raise kids? About kids specifically, on the religious side of things. And this is something that I'm going to ask them. Do you believe in baby baptism or baby dedication? And for me, it better be baby dedication, because baby baptisms are kind of stupid in my opinion. They're not correct, because baptism is a outward declaration of your faith. You cannot have faith like that. You don't have the comprehensive abilities as a toddler or younger, or like especially a baby who can't even talk, to make a decision to follow Christ. Therefore, you cannot be baptized. But baby dedication is, hey, I have a child who currently doesn't believe, doesn't have the capability of believing at this moment, but my wife and I are going to do, and my family and friends are going to do our absolute best to make sure that this child gets raised up in the house of God, like in the ways of God, and how God wants us to raise this child. So it's things like that. Another thing is, how do you act or pivot when plans and things go wrong? The next one, what goals have we achieved, and what are our next goals? People without a direction or goals to achieve become stagnant and end up not living up to their potential. That frightens me. I want to live up to my potential. I want to make sure my future wife also lives up to her potential. And maybe our potential together has synergy with each other, so that if she has potential of 2 and I have potential of 1, our potential isn't 3, it would be like 9 or something, because that's how synergy works. The last one I have here, and these are just examples, but things that I think are pretty important so it's not an exclusive list. You can add to it. How can I support you in the way that you need me to help you reach your maximum potential, so we can reach our maximum potential? It's the help me, help you, help me, help us. This question isn't just a let me help you. It's let me help you, help me. But it's not even just that. It's help me help you to help me, so we can help us. I hope you've been thinking about that, the questions I asked at the beginning. How has your idea of courtship changed based on what we discussed today? Has anything stayed the same? Let me know down in the comments or in a review. And if you've enjoyed today's episode of Consequences of Communication, episode 9, Building Relationships, Courtship, please like, share, subscribe, ring the notification bell. If somebody came to mind while you were listening to this podcast, I'd greatly appreciate it if you shared it with them or let them know about this podcast. That'd be fantastic. And I do appreciate you joining me today for this episode. Join me next week, February 6th, 2024, for Consequences of Communication, episode 10, Building Relationships, Proposal and Engagement. I'll talk to you on the next episode. And until then, take care.